I worked for a company that helped build the, not necessarily the blades, but the carbon fiber that went into those blades. And you want to talk about the biggest waste of money on this earth when it comes to green energy? Put one of those in your backyard. Watch like the bird population disappear.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
It's true.
And they put them out in the ocean, or people have them in their backyards, and they hum all the time. It's like, holy crap! Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. See, now people like to talk, I don't really like to hear them. See these dudes snaking, that's why I don't get near them. This rapper's in my blood, I don't even need a serum. Hometown kids, so you hear the city cheering. Lately I've been going off, think I'm killing now, man, just wait till this my job.
All right, so thank you for, like, honestly taking the time to, come up here and do this. We have a mutual friend, Mallory, who is just absolutely in love with you. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you got to get him on. And I didn't know you were, 5 hours south. So, thank you for coming up here and doing this for us.
Thank you for asking me. Yeah, Mallory was great to make the introduction.
Yeah. She's, I've known her. I think I've known her since 5th or 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Back in West Jordan.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, she was seeing that we were doing this, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so great!" And I've had her on a few times, and she gets a little intense, but that's just her demeanor, you know.
Yeah, that's. I've got a lot of people in my orbit that are
just like that.
They've had it up to here.
Yeah, so. Good. Well, let's get started. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Phil Lyman, from Blanding, Utah, and. Just finished 6 years in the legislature, and I also ran for governor.
Okay.
And we can talk about that. But ran for governor and still fighting some of the fights that came up in that with the election issues. There's about 8 election bills being run at the legislature right now. Almost every one of them I can point to my campaign as being the kind of the catalyst for that. So.
Okay. So how did you get into public service?
I'm a CPA in Blanding, so I'm working with these businesses, and
we could hear you.
Oh, this was over this side.
You're good. Go ahead.
Anyway,
I'll edit it all out.
Okay. So I'm a CPA in Blanding, and working with these businesses, these ranchers and miners and things, and I just watched their livelihoods devastated by bad federal policy. We're in a county that has 8% private property, so we depend on public land for our survival. I always say it's kind of like living on an island, and they say you can't use the ocean anymore.
Right.
It's kind of what it's like when you live in one of these public lands counties. And my big question was why? Why are we making such horrible policies that hurt people? And that question led me to run for county commission. And started asking the question even more, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And go to the meetings, and you find big environmentalist groups that are, too cozy with the agencies, the Bureau of Land Management, and they come out with some horrendous policies that, will just shut down somebody's livelihood. Right. So
I know with like Utah, and I'll make a huge comparison, but from like, you always hear about how like California's ran. Negative deficit all the time. And then you always hear about how great Utah's ran. But what is the real story? Because I don't feel like, at the local level that this is what they're making it out to be.
You got a governor in Utah who wants Utah to be California. And he goes down to California to see how can we do these things? How can we revamp Salt Lake so it looks more like L.A.? How can we get the Olympics here? And that comes with all kinds of strings attached. And, we'll come right out and say, we want to be the cradle or the birthplace of the fourth industrial revolution, which is a term used by Klaus Schwab with the World Economic Forum, which basically is communism and monitoring every motion and activity, high-density housing. So Utah is a special place in a really big state with tons and tons of wide open real estate,
Right.
and we build on top of each other. We choose to build on top of each other, and that comes back to the policies. We're making really bad policies that affect people's lives negatively. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing to live in a high-rise apartment building.
Right.
And if people want that, I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to have it, but we've got policies that make Utah one of the most urban states in the nation.
Right.
People hear that. It's like, yeah, 90% of our population lives in the city. We don't have a lot of people that live outside of the cities.
Yeah. I mean, once you get past like Utah County, or you get, other opposite side up past Davis, I mean, there's so much room out there.
There's room. Yeah.
I mean, you got towns like Beaver, I think is like what, 30 or 40,000 people.
Beaver's like 3,000 or 4,000.
3 or 4,000.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, you obviously hit like Cedar City, College Town, St. George, vacation/college town. So
St. George is interesting for that. But, when I was in high school, we would go over there for track meets. It was a small place,
Right.
but it turned into a large place because people really love it. And that's, I always say, you should allow growth to happen where growth wants to happen. Not that anything goes, but we try to inhibit growth in rural areas that could honestly support it. North Lake Powell,
yeah.
You could have a beautiful city there. That's it's in my backyard, so
Right.
I'm always looking at that.
What about like, if someone, is like as young as myself and I'm 39, if I want to just uproot and move to one of these rural cities, what are like the jobs out there like, like what do they have out there that where I could like, actually survive and be okay?
You could do a really awesome podcast from out in the sticks.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
It is interesting, the technology. I've got a CPA firm, and it's always just been a small CPA firm, done some really big things and some really things that I'm very proud of. But I've always looked at it and thought, if there is a business that could outsource work, and bring in clients without having to have them in the office, accounting, It's an information business, and we have pushed that. And I look at it now, it's like this. I've got employees that I never see, and I've got clients that I've never met, and granted small,
Right.
But you've got a model that's like this isn't inhibited by the size of the town that I live in now.
Right.
This is only inhibited by the ambition of the people that are working.
I know, like we have a co-host that lives in Mount Pleasant, and she makes the trip up, once a week to do it because we normally record on Saturdays. She works from home, and I've learned in my short time of being unemployed and trying to figure out what I want to do, I don't know if I could work from home. Like I'm, once I get going and I'm okay, but it's getting up and getting going is the hard part. And so like I was always interested in like, what does a small town have to offer?
I love going into the office too. And I've got people that I work with that feel the same way. And I have a hard time working from home. It's not that I don't stay on my computer and do stuff.
Right.
It's like when work needs to get done, you go into the office. But
yeah, like for me at least, as I'm in between jobs, like I took on editing as a hobby. Well, not really. I mean, to learn it because of what we do. And so like we'll finish recording tonight and I'll go home and probably jump on the computer for another 4 or 5 hours to get it ready to get released. So, like my job here doesn't end always when we just stop recording. But
so do you play around with AI much?
So yes and no. I am like, when it comes to like having conversations like this, I could be really creative and we can talk about a lot of different things. If I am trying to come up with a catchy title, no. So that's when I would like turn to AI to, create something that's going to catch someone's attention.
I think, again, in my industry, in the accounting industry and financial kind of development things that we're looking at, it's a phenomenal tool. And as I look at it, it's one of those things you're only limited by your imagination, by your access to the tools and your ability to use them. I tell my people in my office, I said, it's not that AI will give us a competitive advantage. If we don't understand how to use it, we're out of the market altogether because it's phenomenal. And the exponential growth of that and adoption of it.
Right.
It's almost frightening because
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to like, I always tell people like I'm a student of the game when it comes to podcasts. And so like I love Joe Rogan, and so he's brought it up a million times where he's just deathly scared of AI. And now you got like quantum computing, and now they're thinking like if these two get together, like it could be, it could be bad, but no one knows. And then the other problem you have is you have these larger tech companies that are super liberal and want to put all these, stop measures into place, but not like the safe ones to allow like AI to like grow naturally. So it's like it's almost like the same game over and over and over again. It just doesn't matter what it is.
I got Copilot with my, Office 365. I thought, I'll try Copilot. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but interfaces with your Excel and your Word and this stuff. And I had written just a piece on corruption in Utah, hard-hitting piece, and a couple of weeks ago, but I just put in the Copilot. So I open up the document, and as soon as the document pops up at the top, it says, these are some serious allegations that you're making, and they don't have the facts to support it. And I was like,
they labeled you.
It's like, Copilot, I didn't ask you for your opinion on this,
right?
But it gave it anyway.
Wow.
And it was like, so. And the other thing that's funny is you get in kind of a debate with AI and especially politics.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what I stated was true. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't take that article into account. And they say, well, did you look at this link? Oh,
so now you start having full on conversations.
I don't know how that generative AI stuff works. I don't know if that's like, okay, am I building database that belongs to me? But the one thing that I do always think is, I know what I'm building is a database that someone else is monitoring, and
right.
They've got my digital twin or whatever that they're like, oh, this guy is looking into,
right,
conspiratorial things in Utah. So
see, that's the scary.
It's frightening.
It's the scary thing about tech is, you agree to the terms of service, and now you're at their mercy.
Yeah.
And like TikTok's the worst, but like for someone doing content creation, I have to have it. It's another platform to do what I need to do on it.
I remember when years ago something would come out and it's like the little cookie notice, and you read it. And it's like, I'm not doing this now. It's like, yes, whatever. Terms of service, yes. We're really conditioned. It's like, I'm not gonna sit here and read. And if you did, you would never get anything done, and wouldn't use anything. But
no, I mean, because you're 5 hours into reading terms of service that you probably don't even understand what they're saying anyway, because the lawyers are that good.
Yeah.
So it's
a scary.
You can't win. So as far as like Utah politics, like, is there a way, or do you see like a vision in the future where the corruption is actually rooted out of this thing?
You'll never get corruption out of politics because the motivation is there, and the reward is there. The gain and the loss are a big part of politics. So there's always going to be the motive. Transparency is the king, and when it comes to, keeping politics honest, and Utah is the least transparent state in all 50. I would put money on that, especially when it comes to our elections.
But what are they hiding though?
Something.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you could speculate. I know when like Trump lost in 2020, and you heard all the conspiracy theories about the CIA and their programs that go in and change things, and like you don't even know who to believe anymore. But then like you get that clown show in DC, and it's like, what is going on? And I feel like Utah, in a sense, is kind of like a microcosm of DC. I mean, like I said, they portray this like, business friendly, great people, great place to raise your kids. And then I'm not doubting any of that.
Yeah, it's all true.
But what are the strings attached to it? Like where do we go from here?
Most people live in Utah. They do love the state, and they love the culture. They love the family friendly. It's wholesome. It's just a good place. And those that really love it can see that we're losing some of that.
Right.
Illegal immigration is one of those topics that is sensitive to people because we have friends that are here, immigrated here. We love immigrants. But the illegal side of that is turning into a thing that is overwhelming.
Looks like a criminal organization.
some of them are, downright criminal organizations.
Like-
And we've got policies. Again, we come back to the policies that attract not only citizen
Right.
aliens, but criminal
Right.
non-citizens. And so you create a policy that says, we won't detain sex offenders
Right.
if they're non-citizens. And that word goes out, and next thing you know, it's like, why is Utah attracting these really violent human trafficking gangs?
So has Cox declared Utah a sanctuary, or is like Salt Lake a sanctuary city?
No, he declared us not a sanctuary city.
Okay. I just
not a sanctuary state, even though all of our policies
say
are.
that it
so
is.
so ICE immigration enforcement came out and said, sorry, Utah, you're a sanctuary city.
They just don't want the label.
Yeah, I mean, if you're San Francisco, you say, you better believe we're a sanctuary
Right.
state. And in Utah, it's like, how dare you? And
Right.
and so when I pointed it out, and this was in the campaign, that was one of the big things that we, blew up is, Utah is a sanctuary state, according to ICE, according to our policies. And the immediate response, and this is another indicator of someone who is criminally fraudulent, not just negligently fraudulent, is when something's discovered, because they're not transparent. So you discover something and they come out, Phil Lyman is anti-police.
The smear campaign.
Phil Lyman is, his rhetoric is inviting thousands of illegal immigrants here because he's the one that's advertising us as not having laws that, it's just the most nonsensical stuff. But that's the response that you get from somebody who's hiding something.
Right.
So then we say, what are they hiding? I don't know, but well, actually, I do know a lot of it, and a lot of it's been by running for this office that you dig into it and you find out there's a lot of things that are being hidden.
So I know Mallory told me some things, and it that actually leads into like my next question was, you brought up you ran for governor. My understanding it's still being contested, or is it pretty much a done deal?
Well, I haven't conceded, and I won't concede because of some things we can talk about. But Spencer Cox was installed as the governor, and he is the governor, and he's acting as the governor. And I'm not trying to say, that everything he's doing is illegal,
Right.
but he is illegitimate. So
what makes him illegitimate for someone, who's not familiar with politics in general, or just, even just Utah politics?
So the most direct route, and there's several routes that would disqualify him, but the most direct route is he lost at the convention with less than 40% of the vote. He got 32%, which is the lowest that any incumbent governor has ever gotten at a convention. So he didn't qualify at the convention. You can end run the convention by getting signatures if you get 28,000 valid signatures. He didn't get 28,000 valid signatures. And there's been 3 audits now two full audits, one investigation that's ongoing now. And both audits said he did not get his 28,000 signatures, but he would have, he could have, he may have had he known. He got bad information. That bad information comes from basically the lieutenant governor's office, which is the governor himself. Right. And that's what I tell people, if you're contesting the signatures of another statewide race, you're dealing with somebody who in good faith relied on the lieutenant governor's office. But if you're contesting the lieutenant governor, she doesn't get the same thing to say, well, we were told that we were good. It's like you're in charge of it.
Right.
You oversee this. And we go into that whole thing with the signatures. We find out that there are people, there's communications that show clearly they knew they didn't have their signatures, but I think they also knew that no one ever checks and they're going to go forward. And it wasn't just, I should say, it was just the governor who was in that razor thin margin. The others that gathered, Derek Brown or John Curtis,
or yourself.
I didn't gather signatures. I just went the convention route.
Okay.
So, but the others that gathered signatures and turned them in, they had thousands of extra signatures for it. And it's interesting. So Spencer Cox, his people came out and said, when I said, I don't believe he got his signatures. Now, why would I say something so audacious? Because they would not let us see him.
Right.
Anybody else's, they were like, yeah, you can come and see him. Yeah, you can take a look.
Well, it's like anything in life when, someone starts lying and they get all huffy and puffy, they're doing it to put on a show, because they're hiding something.
Yeah, and as a CPA with a little bit of auditing background, but, enough to know that if someone says you can look at everything but what's in that closet, it's like, well, I really don't want to look at everything now other than what's in the closet.
Right.
And it's that way with, honestly, it's that way with everything with the lieutenant governor's office. Anything that I want to look at, they don't even know what the implications are of me saying, could I look at the cast vote records? They don't even know what the implications are. They just know he's up to something.
Right.
He's gonna find something. So do not let him look at these cast vote records. So we go to court, go to a judge. The judge says, oh, shame on you. You can't.
So
look
does
at those.
Utah have like it reminds me of like FOIA in like DC. Do they have something similar here?
Yeah, they call it GRAMA, which is
Okay.
Government Records Access Management.
And they're still not like releasing it when you.
No. So the signatures was one of the first things before the primary. We had asked for access to the packets, and people were going in and saying, can I look at this state school board? Sure. Come in at 1:00 tomorrow. If you want copies, we'll have to redact some signatures. It's fine. We're just trying to find out, do these look like they're in order?
Right.
Do they look legit? Yeah. And when we asked for that access, we got a denial, and then we got you can have a redacted list without the private or the withheld included, which is 40% of them. It's like, well, it's hard to come to a conclusion if we can only look at 60% of the signatures and determine,
Right.
did he get 28,000 or did he not? We still wanted to look at those to see were there some issues and problems. But we were denied the access to the records. So we went to the State Records Committee, appealed it to them. They went and said, no, you can't look at these because there's an investigation on these signatures in Washington County, an active investigation. So then we say, well, what's the investigation about? Well, they believe there were some fraudulent signatures. Well, did the signatures that were gathered in Washington County and verified by the Washington County clerk?
Like elections office.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so now you've got an individual or a group of individuals that are going out and gathering signatures for, in this case, it was Don Ipson in Washington County. After the fact, after he was certified, you're good. Then the clerk went in and said, wait a second, 25% of these signatures are not Republicans or not residents. They're fake. They're fraud.
Like what are they writing in? Like Jane Doe?
No, they're writing in like Sean Swanson, Phil Lyman. Page after
Even though
page.
we're not resident, or at least me, I'm not a resident of Washington.
Oh yeah, well in Washington they would get the list.
Do they do like almost like the like the people that passed away and writing their name in there too?
Well,
That's like the dirtiest trick in the book.
what they're banking on is no one's ever going to look at these, and so if you have a list and you get the list of all the Republicans in a neighborhood, there's good programs out there. So these gatherers have access to a lot of specific data, including the private and withheld people, by the way. We can't look at their signatures, we can't look at their packet, but
What makes them so special though?
it's because they're on the right side of the ledger when it comes to information.
Oh, they know too much.
They rig the system, and it's their system. It's their mechanism.
So
And when you go up against it, you're going up against the very people who created a system that says, I can look at everything and you can't look at anything.
So basically, like if you were to run again, which I read, you are going to run in 28. Is that right?
Yeah.
You almost have to like flood the entire system with votes, like what Trump did.
Right.
It has to be so overwhelming that they can't do this.
Right.
Is what it seems like. And then from an outsider perspective, not knowing this, like, they didn't go get their signatures because they probably thought they had it in the bag. No one's going to check.
No one's going to check.
He's an incumbent, right?
So if you want to see a little bit more of this picture, so you get this group of kind of elite people in Utah. It's like we probably are smarter than most everybody. Our businesses make tons and tons of money, and if we didn't have the people in our way, we could do really, really cool things, and everyone would love it, and we would get even more filthy rich. And so they come up with this thing of we're going to invest in downtown, whether it's the Huntsmans, the Levitts, the Millers,
Right.
whatever. We're going to invest in downtown, and we're going to have the legislature in our back pocket. They're going to pass policies. They're going to funnel tax money in to subsidize it. We're going to build gondolas. We're going to build stadiums.
New hockey arena.
We're going to build arenas. I mean, we're going to do all these things. And who doesn't like baseball?
No, right. But
who's going to vote against baseball?
Well, right. But like to me, and I always explain this to my dad because, my dad's a diehard Republican. And he gets caught up in the political theater he sees on like Fox News. And I always have to explain to him, like, this is the 3-card Monte. They're moving the cards around to keep your attention here as they're doing something back here.
I love that. I call it a shell game. Same concept.
Yeah. And, I have to, explain this to him. And then it's like, well, what do you think is going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is like, we don't know what's going on.
I always tell people the only thing we know for sure is that we're being lied to.
Right.
And we do know that. It's like everyone knows we are being lied to, but it's like, are they lying or are they lying? Is it Phil Lyman that's lying to them? Or is it the Republicans? Is it Democrats?
Yeah.
Whatever,
But it's like, oh, well, I like, I think Cox looks better, so I'm going to vote for him.
Yeah.
Which is like the dumbest thing to do anyway. But, we have the normies is what Mallory calls them. And
But anyway, so you get this investment. You get people who have invested billions
Right.
of dollars into the state. They've got a mechanism that serves them, and they're not going to let somebody like Phil Lyman come in and
so you legitimately have to run like a grassroots campaign. And
yeah, because they do have the legislature locked up, leadership all the way down. And I'm not saying there's not some standout people with backbones there, and on different issues you'll see different people that will really stand up. But by and large, the pressure in the legislature, having been there for the last 6 years, the pressure in the legislature is to kind of go along with your colleagues.
Yeah.
And
don't stand out, or they'll
don't stand out. Don't criticize anybody.
So it's
especially the leadership.
it's like a good old boys club.
Right. Which again, it's politics.
Right.
It's not like shocking to anybody to find
Right.
out that there's that dynamic. So you get these people, and they say, when Mike Lee comes in and beats an incumbent Bob Bennett for senator at the convention, they're like, that's not going to fly. We are not going to we're not going to be at risk for something like that. So they put in this Senate Bill 54, which made the signature route, and then they've just exploited the heck out of that. It's like a get out of jail free card. Whatever we want to do, SB 54, it says we can do this.
So they just keep changing the rules as it benefits
as
them.
they go. Yeah, as they go. And then when you go and say, hey, you can't do that, it's like, well, what are you going to do?
Right.
You're going to sue us? Yeah, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take it to court. Well, guess who appoints the judges? The governor.
So it's wow.
I mean, and again, no one, when you say the judicial system is corrupt, no one goes like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. It's like
Right.
everyone knows. Everyone
Right.
knows. And I'm not bashing the judicial system. I'm bashing the corrupt judicial system.
Right.
The corrupt side of that needs to be called out and called out all the time. It's refreshing. And I was just having a conversation with somebody today. If you got a Republican Party here who has like kind of the Revolutionary War patriotic spirit, Spencer Cox is the British. Donald Trump is kind of the patriot
Right.
side of this.
Right.
Yet they're both the head of the Republican Party, one at the national level and one at the state level. So we've got a dilemma, create some cognitive dissonance
Right.
for people in Utah to say, I'm a firm Republican. That's why I stand behind Spencer Cox. You can't say that and without some cognitive dissonance.
Right.
He's not a Republican in terms of ideology or background.
So do you feel he's very liberal in his views?
He's very leftist.
Left. Okay.
Yeah,
So he's like other way.
Yeah, he's very leftist, and I don't know if that equates to liberal.
So basically he's like a Manchin, but like the West Virginia version.
Yeah.
Where, you run as a independent or a Democrat and you barely get by, but you have enough people in your corner where you really don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, if you believe in individual autonomy, he's very, very low on that scale. But if you believe in traditional versus new innovation, I'm not sure. And that's kind of where you say conservatives believe very traditionally and liberals believe very modern. He's probably a modern thinker, but not like an ultra liberal
Right.
modern thinker. But he's an ultra leftist.
Right.
we know best and we will tell you what to do, and don't argue. Or if you do want to argue, just do it the way we say. Disagree better, and be nice, and don't raise a ruckus. Just stay in line. It's the politics of obedience, the politics of compliance, and it's really, really ugly.
It's
it's
disgusting.
It is disgusting.
So Mallory told me, when talking about Cox, how, she uses the term plant as well. And she's brought up like the World Economic Forum, where he's backed by them, I guess, right? And what it sounds like is like the worst case scenario, because I feel like the World Economic Forum is like a lot like China. You give them a little crack in the door, they're going to bust it open, and then they're going to do what they want to do, and they own you, and you become a political slave to their ideology, and and you get to remain in power. So I would imagine that's roughly what we have in Cox right now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think that's fair. And I mentioned earlier a little bit about the difference between negligent fraud versus criminal fraud. And criminal fraud they've got a plan, it's consistent, they've got a pattern, it has gain and loss associated with it. If it's negligent fraud, and I say, hey, you parked in my parking spot for the whole month and you didn't pay a thing for it, you would say, I thought that was my parking spot.
Right.
I had no idea. I thought I was,
Yep.
But if it's criminal fraud, then it's like, I'm going to call the cops on you. And,
right, you're trespassing.
You've discovered something here. There's no transparency. The reaction to discovery is a way you can tell
right
if it's fraudulent, if it's negligent or criminal. And in this case, it's criminal. We are dealing with criminal fraud, and I don't mind saying that over and over and over.
Well, I don't want
because it elicits the response.
Right, and I don't want you to say anything that would like implicate you, or something that they could use in 28 when you're on this small podcast in Salt Lake City, and you're you're letting them have it, kind of like
when you said
kind of like the Kash Patel stuff going on with the FBI confirmation, and they're bringing everything back from 2020 and before, and that the left just can't seem to understand that some things are just clickbait, and some things are said that are meant, but you look at the body of work, probably not a bad deal, but
that's one of those things with the left. They always, things that you say in earnest, they make fun of it like it's in jest, and the things that you say in jest, they act like it's done in earnest. It's just.
So how strong is the Democrat Party, like at least in the state legislature? Because I looked up, so in doing a little bit of research when you agreed to come on, I had contradicting articles. One of them said that you were the 69th representative or district representative currently, and then others saying that you weren't. So that kind of red flagged it, had me start jumping in. But then you can go to the website for the government here locally and separate them by Democrat and Republican. And there's not a lot of Democrats, but there's a lot of power behind that party. I mean, do they have that kind of pull here? Or is it more just you can have that district like Salt Lake?
I would say that the Democrats as a party don't have much pull. But
do they rotate a lot out? Like, new people come in and they get voted out?
I would say probably about the same rate as the Republicans. There's some that have been there for a long time, but for most of them, it's a little bit of a revolving door, and they come and they go. But the power that the Democrats have in the House is the swing vote between kind of leftist leaning policies, and so you get the real conservative Republicans and the more moderate Republicans, and then the Democrat vote becomes the
swing.
The swing.
Okay.
Which is powerful, and they have their spots on a lot of the committees. So even though they're very disproportionately small in the body, they're represented equally on the committees and the chairmanships and things like that. Well, to some, that's not it. They're still they're the minority party,
right?
But
do you think a little piece of them dies every time they have to co-sign on a Republican bill? Just eats at them.
It would be hard to be a Democrat in Utah, in the legislature. It would be hard, and I admire them because that's when they bring a bill. A lot of times they know,
Is it garbage though?
Sometimes, but they know that this is going to die, and they plead, and a lot of times it is like the heartfelt
Right.
things. There's a lot of things. It's interesting as a libertarian type minded person.
So that's me.
Yeah, and you find in a lot of the libertarians and the Democrats come back to a meeting point because they believe that people should be able to choose for themselves. I mean, like if you take an issue like cannabis, you're going to find a bunch of Republicans that are like, oh no, we don't do that in Utah.
Right.
And then the true libertarians are like, why don't we?
Right.
It's like, why is government telling us this? And when the Democrats are like, we want it. And
I'm just a big believer of, whatever you do in the four walls of your home is your own business.
should be.
And then, as long as you're not out, whether it's maliciously or, by incident, something that you've done in your home that's now causing harm to other people. I mean, it's a very low standard to abide by, so I don't, like me personally, I don't really get into like the cannabis argument. I don't care one way or another. Like it doesn't do anything for me. I don't,
Don't hurt people.
Yeah, pretty simple,
Yeah.
And then if you do legalize it, just tax the living crap out of it.
Well, and here's the thing.
We'll make money on it.
It's like, oh, well, it's illegal. Does that mean that nobody uses it? No, it's like
Right.
you've got as much use going on, and that gets into the pragmatic side of policy. It's like, well, you can make a policy that says that people can't do that, but if you
Right.
can't enforce, and they always have to say, well, how are you going to enforce that? And what's that going to look like? And pretty soon you're going after people, or you create a law that is very easily abused against political enemies and things like that.
Right.
And I'm very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
I went to jail, by the way. I spent 10 days in.
Okay. I kind of have it's funny as you're talking, you're actually hitting on everything that I have set up. So this is working out
okay.
awesome.
Didn't want to get
No.
Without mentioning, I do have a mugshot. Before they were cool, so
No, you're good. You're totally fine. I think, when it comes to like the drug thing, you can swing one way like Oregon did and have a bunch of issues, and then you can kind of find that medium ground, But I don't know. I believe if you just open up the floodgates, bad things are going to happen.
yeah.
I mean,
we've seen it. Yeah.
I mean, you've seen it, and then they've had to tone it down, but now, but what is that happy medium, Like someone's, smoking a joint, driving around, that's illegal, but I, like my 4Runner, I have limousine tint. Admittedly, I drive in the carpool lane without another passenger, and I usually do like 80 on I-15. I break 3 laws every time I get on the freeway.
Yeah.
But that dude just, smoking a joint. Like, which one is worse? Like, how do you, kind of create the construct on what's fair and what's not fair? And like, that's tough. I mean, as when you were an elected official, I'm sure there's a lot of consideration on, lots of different issues that you have to really look at. And, to me, it would be a tough job, but I always, looking at like, at least on the federal level, I'm a firm believer that these guys only work about 40 hours a month, and then what are you doing with the other 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
We have all these issues in this country, and you're there for 1 week out of the month. And then, God forbid you have to do 2, and then they freak out. It's like,
yeah, you probably saw the analysis that came out of the percentage use of the federal buildings, and what I think the news report said that they're below 50%. Well, you look at the report, it's like 7%, 8%.
yeah, it's almost
4%.
as bad as those fake cities in North Korea.
It really is.
I mean, it's just,
huge buildings and nobody's in there.
It's all for show,
Yeah.
and then we're paying the tax dollars on it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. It's tough. But when you were, a representative, what bills did you have your name on? Like, did you create bills and, got things passed?
Yeah. The first bill I passed was a bill that dealt with RS 2477 roads. That's roads that have a federal grant
Right.
to cross land. And the first bill I passed said you can't drag debris into an RS 2477 road
What would how would you define debris?
trees and rocks and stuff.
Okay.
So the environmentalists will go out and say, I don't want this road. BLM hasn't closed it, but I'm going to close it by dragging this tree across. And we say, well, that's a misdemeanor. You can't do that. And that bill passed. And then the last bill I passed was an RS 2477 access bill. So for me, that they were like my bookend bills, and I was really proud of it. And the last one just said, if an agency closes a road without going through the due process, then the state and the county will consider that road invalidly closed and still legal to use.
Right.
And it's one of those bills that it's pretty simple, but it takes the whole federal thing of you can't use this road until we get done with our court case 20 years from now.
Right.
To saying, well, we'll continue to use it until you get done with your court case. Basically, it's innocent till proven guilty type of a thing.
We'll get back to you in 2045.
And that's not an exaggeration.
No, I know that's the crazy thing. Does Utah, like let's say a big bill, like a good spending bill. Does Utah also do like the pork, like they do in DC?
Oh, big time. Oh yeah.
That drives me nuts.
We can't print money like they do in DC. So,
right.
So we have some constraints, thankfully, and we've got lots of revenue, but lots of huge amounts of spending that go out. It's like we can't afford $4.5 million for
right.
Handicapped kids, but where did that $480 million come for? This,
for the
Olympics or the gondola or, transportation stuff to nowhere, pet projects.
But that's what kills me, like if you pass a $500 million bill for the Olympics and then you actually look at what's in the bill and, they got 20 million set aside for like lesbian dance theory. Nothing to do with what you're trying to pass, and it's everyone just trying, it's like the money grab, like that drives me nuts. I feel like that has single-handedly ruined federal politics, and now it's on the state level as well.
Yeah, in 2023, I think it was, we gave $40 million to save the Great Salt Lake. Small price to pay to save such an important asset. Well, what did we do with the money? What does that mean when you say we're going to spend $40 million? Well, we gave it to the Audubon Society and the Nature Conservancy, two big environmentalist groups, Rockefeller Tides Foundation, all of the ugly stuff that
all the conspiracy stuff.
And we give them $40 million. That's why I said that wasn't the bill. The bill didn't say we're going to give this to these people. It's like we're going to allocate $40 million and we're going to really solve this problem. The legislature adjourns. 2 weeks later, they select a contractor to receive the $40 million. It's the Audubon Society and the Nature Conservancy. And for somebody like me, that's corruption. That's like saying, we gave Russia $40 million so they could come and help us educate our children or something. I mean, it's corruption. So I made a big stink about it, and had legislators, Phil Lyman, he's unreasonable, blah blah blah. And then this year, after the session again, Spencer Cox, after he was elected, one of the first things he announced is we're giving $50 million to save the Great Salt Lake, to match $50 million of federal money to save the Great Salt Lake. So $100 million, and we're going to give that to save the Great Salt Lake.
So where'd it go?
Yeah, I don't know. I suspect to the Nature Conservancy and the Audubon. It's going to go to somebody. And then if you really want to dig into that, if you want to follow the money, you find that goes out, and then you find campaign contributions come in.
Yeah,
and it's ubiquitous in Utah to all of the big government contractors. I thought I would have been embarrassed had I been Spencer Cox, because he listed all of these corporations support me and my candidacy. Well, dig into their financial disclosures. Like, funny, all of those corporations got millions and millions and millions of dollars from you
in grants and everything else. It's like here's a hot button issue. I don't know if it is as much it is anymore, but it's like the COVID vaccine brought to you by Pfizer, which is brought to you by Joe Biden's reelection campaign.
Yeah.
People are like, and then they're shocked when they hear that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's really what they do.
It's one of those things in politics that people start to fall asleep because it happens over and over and over and over and over. It's like Novocaine, it's like, It's like, I think it's a.
Well, what I would tell people
analogy.
is like, anytime you see a commercial, like a political commercial, and at the very end they're like, I'm Donald Trump and I approve of this message, That's usually like the PAC, super PAC stuff, right?
Right.
Because it's not coming out of his war chest. It's because you got like you can only get what $25 donations or what's the donation maximum like if you were running for governor again?
There's no max. There's no max
Not in
in
the state.
Utah. Yeah.
What about on the federal level? Because I thought it was really small.
It's like 2,500.
Okay.
And then that's per person per cycle. So and I should know these, but so it's like if you wanted to really max out, you give $7,500 to a candidate, and you'd also have your wife give $7,500, and so 15 grand.
So
In that ballpark.
right. See, that's just I don't know. I hate the PAC and super PAC thing. I tried to explain this to someone, and it just goes. It's like just go look at the 501c3. That's all it is a 501c3.
Oh yeah, we opened that way up with some. It's like, okay, you don't want to know. You don't want someone to know how much money you're giving. Oh, well, just give it to the PAC, and off you go. And it's a huge industry.
So in 28, when you win, me and Lee are coming for that 501c3 tax exempt on our deal, so we can start funneling money to you on PAC and super PAC things. We'll just stick it right where they're doing it to everyone else.
Yeah, well, it's going to take some planning, some strategy. So find a dark room. You got a dark room, so
Yeah,
we can do it.
We're good. We got the basement. You know, we're hidden.
Yeah.
You know, we're like Utah's best kept secret. If you were elected governor, you know, like what would you do day one? You know, and I bring this up because, you know, Trump came out swinging and just continues to swing, and people don't know how to, or I shouldn't say people, the left does not know how to react. They are in like full meltdown mode. Like the only other time I've ever been so like entertained in politics is when he first got elected the first time and watching like the meltdown videos on election day. But now that he's like done this before and he's back and he's literally like just destroying policies and, you know, would you do something similar, or can a governor do that here in the state?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you don't have quite the pen that the president has,
Right.
But I would tell the BLM that we don't need them. We have. Someone said, "Well, how would the state ever manage all this public land if you got rid of the feds?" I said, "Oh, we've got these little things called counties. They were designed to do exactly that, and I love county government. I was county commissioner for 8 years. I love that they're so close to the people.
Well,
and
the power should be turned back to the states and then the counties.
It's easy.
Yeah.
It's
It's as easy as cleaning up California on the wildfires.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Someone says, "Well, you know, who's going to manage all this public land?" I say, "Well, it's done pretty well for the last, 2 million years. I don't think we're going to destroy it." And that's coming from a person who lives in a really pristine part of the world where
Right.
it stays pristine because it's the land, and
Well, you allocate funds to properly clean things up and you don't run into issues.
yeah. So
Take
public lands issues, but along with that is to say we're going to produce on public lands. And that excise tax, those monies that come from public lands are going to be used to reduce or eliminate the income tax. And it's doable. I mean, they do it in other states. It would be difficult in Utah to get that completely to zero, but like Alaska has so much land and so few
Right.
people that they can do it.
But they also have a huge industry, or two industries that funnel money into that thing.
Oh yeah. Utah is probably one of the wealthiest states natural minerals wise. So so energy is huge. Coal, natural gas.
What about like the solar panel ingredients? Do we have any of that here?
We have rare earth minerals.
We have everything.
We've got it all if we wanted to use it. Which brings me to the next thing, which is the regulation on nuclear energy, and anything radioactive has a really expensive regulatory process. And I in the legislature, I started what I called the Yellow Cake Caucus, and yellow cake is uranium, refined uranium. If people that don't know that just thought we were having some, confection.
It's like the Red Shoes Club in
Yeah.
DC.
I don't know what the Red Shoes Club is. I don't know if it's like that or not. But
Well, I mean, supposedly it's another one of those secret societies, and they show up and they got the red leather shoes, and you just
Okay.
know that that's their deal.
yeah.
And then the conspiracy theory starts, and they're involved in a bunch of heinous crimes, and who knows what's true or not.
So that's exactly like the Yellow Cake Caucus.
Yeah.
But one of the things that came out of the Ellicott Caucus, we had Dr. Mehmet from BYU come up to talk about thorium and exciting technology. I mean, and the waste product of thorium is medical isotopes that you can't get any other way than by burning
Uranium
from spent thorium.
or thorium.
So I mean, it's phenomenal.
So what would they use the medical isotopes for?
Cancer treatment.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay. So
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah,
That makes sense.
truly phenomenal. But he said we needed a testing facility. It didn't have any radioactive element to this testing facility. It would cost $12,000 to build. They talked to Idaho National Labs, and they said, we'd be glad to build it for you. It costs $80 million to permit it in 20 years to build a $12,000 testing facility. So I said, why not declare Utah a sanctuary state for nuclear energy and say, we're not exporting this. We're going to develop nuclear energy in Utah. And I mean, I was like patting myself on the back for this
And they shut you down.
idea that came up. No, I found out that another state had already done that.
Oh,
Can you imagine who it might have been that would tell the federal government, no thanks, we'll take care of our own energy issues?
Texas?
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, God bless Texas.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care.
And they did. They said Texas is going to, I don't know if they called it a sanctuary state, but they said Texas is going to develop nuclear energy independent of the Nuclear Energy Commission.
The only
in the
thing
United
that
States.
scares me about the nuclear, that whole thing is it's not the weapons. It's not, a reactor melting down. It's more of, do we have up-to-date infrastructure that can't be hacked into, because I feel like the entire country is a sitting duck for, online warfare.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing about nuclear energy. It is powerful. That's its inherent quality is it's so potent.
Yeah, just go out to the West Desert, build a ton of them, and then
Yeah.
we'll just turn around and sell the energy back to California so they can power all their electric vehicles.
Yeah,
Win-win.
I mean, I don't know if anybody has ever died in the nuclear energy. Some died in Fukushima, drowned, whatever.
Chernobyl.
I don't know if anybody died.
I don't know.
There's some social issues, but you compare that to like the coal industry that has
Right.
had thousands and thousands of people die.
I mean, West Virginia, like the Virginians they're a little weird now
Yeah.
because of the coal, but I think they're still kicking.
Yeah, and I went to a coal mine here out in Uinta County. Actually, it's just over the border in Colorado. They do not mine coal the same way that they did 50 years ago, and they
No.
don't do nuclear energy the same way they did 50 or even 100 years ago, because it's been around for a long time. And so you get these small form nuclear reactors. You've got thorium. You've got some companies that are very earnest, very authentic in trying to address this energy need. And the truth is, we don't have an energy shortage. What we have is overregulation.
Right.
And so much of the environmentalist pushback that's coming that really blocks all of that creates all of the really pointless regulation is being pushed by the environmentalists who are receiving funds from the big globalist
Right.
nonprofits. So you've got China and Russia basically saying we don't want coal-fired power plants in the United States. We're building one a week in China, but we don't want you to build them
Right.
in America. Why?
And then you have the Paris climate deal, and they won't join, and India won't join, and they're the biggest polluters.
And why don't
and
they
we're,
want?
and we're fronting all the
yeah.
money for it.
And they don't want us to join because they want to corner the market.
Right.
It's like, we don't want you competing. I mean, Vladimir Putin was very adamant about it. I want to control the uranium of the world. And a couple of phone calls to Hillary Clinton. Next thing you know, she brokers the deal for him to buy uranium one.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, I was right in the middle of that.
I remember that, and
Yeah.
that got pushed underneath the rug.
Oh yeah, for the whole Obama administration.
So I read, and I don't know how true this is, and this could be another conspiracy deal. I heard the leading attorney who brokered that deal was Hunter Biden, and he doesn't have a law degree.
I don't know about that. I know Frank Giustra, the Canadian financier, made $1 billion, and the next week donated $125 million to the Clinton Foundation.
That did her well.
Nothing to see there.
Right.
And the funny thing too, after uranium was sold to Russia, it wasn't very long before Russia sold it back to a United States company for pennies on the dollar. So then it kind of killed my, this is a uranium takeover thing.
Right.
Oh no, this is good, honest money laundering.
So I feel like, we'll use Cox as the example. You got the $12,000 needed. He'll probably say, "Oh, let's do $120 million, and we'll just throw up windmills because
Yeah.
they're great."
Yeah.
I worked for a company that helped build the, not necessarily the blades, but the carbon fiber that went into those blades. And you want to talk about the biggest waste of money on this earth when it comes to green energy? Put one of those in your backyard. Watch like the bird population disappear.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
It's true.
And they put them out in the ocean, or people have them in their backyards, and they hum all the time. It's like, holy crap! Like, what are we doing?
They're ugly.
Yeah, like going up Spanish Fort Canyon, and they're right there.
Yeah.
Like what? Or you drive out to like Death Valley, California, and they're everywhere.
These solar fields, that take up 1,000 acre solar. You drive by and it's like, what is that
right
over there? And you realize they have covered that entire place with.
But what are they?
Solar panels.
What are we getting out of that though? Because I know like the door-to-door salesmen that want to sell you the panels on your roof, and you can buy back, or the state can buy back the energy, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know, but like you have these giant like thousands of acres of these things. Where does all this power go? Because I know my power bill doesn't go down.
It goes into the grid.
Does it?
When the sun's shining.
Yeah.
When the sun's not shining, then they kick on the coal-fired generators.
Yeah.
So it doesn't provide the base load. So then you get into the battery stuff and things like that. Even with solar, it's subsidized by the government. Without the subsidies, people wouldn't do it individually.
Right.
You certainly wouldn't do it on this massive scale. But I am a proponent, I'm a supporter, a defender of the solar industry in terms of those people that are going out and selling things to people on their homes. And buyer beware, because there's shysters and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, as a CPA, I see people that do that. I see, clients that come in and say, yeah, I pay $15 a month total utility bill, and I got a subsidy, and I do their tax return. It's like, holy cow, you're getting 30% of.
And I drive a Tesla, and I got that subsidy.
So there's nothing wrong with someone who looks at the system and says, this is a really stupid system, but I can make money on it, and I'm not to. I don't fault them. I don't fault the solar companies.
I'm just saying, if
small.
It's out of sight, out of mind, if it's on your roof and you don't go on your roof, cool.
Yeah.
But if you're taking up thousands of acres.
When it turns into a boondoggle.
Right. My favorite deal is with the Green New Deal crowd, where they love the solar, and then they don't know what it does to the environment. And then they drive the electric cars, and when the batteries go bad, they don't know where they put them, which in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like politics in general is a dog eat dog. I was just like, that's why I was curious how strong the Democrats are here, because like I was your atypical young kid trying to, understand politics. Here comes Obama on his first term. I'm like, let's go, change, hope, and then
exciting time.
Yeah. But then you
Audacious.
see what is really going on, endless wars dividing the nation, which we're still dealing with right now. And then it swung me over to the Republican side. And then I watched, Trump lose in 2020 and watched the knives come out and totally bury him. And I'm just like, holy crap, like, this is so bad.
It was astonishing that, what America has witnessed the last 4 years, and I mean the COVID response, and then all of the lawsuits against Trump, and the shutting down industries. We watched. I mean, I live down on the Arizona, close to the Arizona border, and down in Page, they exploded their coal-fired generating plant.
That was probably a big deal.
It was a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal to the 1,200 Native American workers who lost their jobs, and then a few months later were losing their homes, and people survive. They go back to their their roots and back to the reservation and live.
Some of those reservations are terrible.
It's rough.
It's so sad.
And again, I had a friend who. Navajo guy that did extremely well. As an engineer, and he wanted to go back. All he wanted was to go back to the reservation, live in a hogan, and raise sheep. More power to him.
Yeah.
But for those that wanted to have a house and send their kids to college and all
The
those
American
things,
dream.
yeah, they were cut off not by, you know, measures that were going to save the globe from climate change. They
Right.
were cut off by really horrible people with really bad ideas and more than anything a real desire to be in charge of what other people do.
Right.
No liberty.
So they're not going to rebuild the plant at all? No?
No, I mean it would cost. It probably cost a couple of $1 billion to rebuild that plant, and they shut down, so they take down the plant, which shuts down Peabody coal.
Right. So you lose jobs, you lose a business that goes.
And they're doing it in the name of you know, Mother Earth.
It's like
whatever.
Flint, Michigan, down in Arizona.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like the aftermath of like, you know, the car industry leaving and what's happened to that town. And that's another terrible story, but another Democrat run, you know, state.
it's bad. It's bad policy. When I gave my first Lincoln Day dinner address was at Salt Lake County, one of the first ones, and that was my breakout speech, and I felt inspired when I was putting it together. And it was basically if a state doesn't respect individual liberties, those inalienable rights that we talk about in the Declaration of Independence, if they don't respect those, they're probably not going to respect parenthood. You get personhood and parenthood wrong, you're going to get statehood wrong. And next thing you know, you're going to be thinking, what makes sense for the state? Whatever puts the most money in my pocket, the pocket of my friends, and
Right.
you know, to hell with everybody.
I mean,
else.
you literally watched, you know, in the 80s and 90s with the crack epidemic, what it did to Los Angeles, you know? And then come to find out the CIA is flying all that stuff in.
Not the CIA.
No, they would never do that. They would never overthrow our government.
It was horrible people. It was like, foreigners doing that.
That dang George W. or George H. A lot of people don't know that either. But so the BLM deal. So what I read was you held a protest on BLM land and then hopped in a side-by-side and went tearing through and they got you. I mean, is that the gist of it? Or is there a lot more?
I read that. No. So I'm working with the Bureau of Land Management. My county commissioner, work with them. They closed a road that crossed public land. I mean, everything crosses public land in Utah. So they closed this road in 2007 on an emergency closure, which lasts for 6 months. 2013, it's still closed. And I'm a commissioner, and I'm saying, what are we doing with recapture? What's going on with recapture? But not only what's going on with recapture, but what happened in 2009? Why did you raid the home of 26 families and the 4 suicides that followed hard upon that? The devastation that they were creating. Why are you doing this to us?
So they had like a little mini Ranch Covidian deal going on down there, and that was on BLM land or public land.
No, they came into the city of Blanding with 300 federal agents and raided the town. It was because I'll tell you why.
This is like out of a Western movie.
It's because we have rare earth minerals in the Bears Ears National what is now the Bears Ears National Monument. You can't just come in and take away somebody's stuff without reason.
Right.
So the reason has to be, so you reverse engineer this and say, we want all of that and we want to lock it up. We're the Carnegie Institute. We understand what's out there and we want to lock that up so that no one else can ever have that. It will be us that controls it. And to do that, there's got to be a justification, and it's that those people in Blanding are looting Native American graves, and it's not happening. It was not happening. I've got the report. I asked for the BLM. I said, in fact, I got elected right after the 2009. That's what prompted me to run for commissioner. Was that raid?
Okay.
Because it was like, we don't do this. This is not America. This is not how this works.
What agency raided? Was it FBI or?
BLM was the.
So they have their own like task force.
FBI was there. They brought in every federal agency they could, but it was a BLM. I mean, you have to get a grand jury or whatever. You have to get a warrant. So it was
They got a 702 you.
Yeah. So I mean, we got a new president in 2009.
Yeah.
And this raid took place in June of 2009, and it was a shock and awe
Who was it? I wonder who the EPA person was, or whoever does land management.
Salazar. Salazar was
He's a crook.
Yeah, he was a crook. Larry Echohawk was the deputy, and that was he's a Utahn and works in the governor's office now.
Birds of a feather.
And yeah, I mean, he and I have created a relationship that we can talk to each other, but it was painful. That was a really painful thing. And then he was made a leader in the LDS church. That was a painful thing too. So a lot of things that it's like we don't understand. So we do the best we can and assume that at some point these things will make some sense.
Right.
But yeah, Blanding was the target to make an example of, to justify locking up the Bears Ears National Monument, which they did at the end of the Obama administration. We knew it was coming. There's no question. It's like,
so you battled it for 8 years then?
Oh yeah, we battled it for at least 8 years. And when Jason Chaffetz, who I have tons and tons of respect for, and he was our representative, and he showed up as our congressman and said, Phil, you guys have got to come up with a public lands plan, meaning a plan to stop using public lands,
right,
or you're going to get a national monument. And I said, Jason, it's your land. Call it whatever you want. Don't pretend like the county has any say in this. You will come in here and start something that will cause contention for the next 5 years, and then end up doing exactly what the president's going to do anyway. Not saying that Jason would do that, but that's what's going to happen. That's what
right.
the feds do. I underestimated, because that was 13, 14 years ago, and the contention has not died down. So Obama designated it on his way out. Trump
reversed it
as soon as he got in. Biden put it back bigger and better than Obama's when he got in.
And now it'll get reversed again.
It's going to get reversed again. President Trump, if you're listening, you made a promise that you would.
I hope he's listening.
Yeah. he probably listens to this show, but
yeah, next time he's coming through Salt Lake and they shut it down, we're right downtown. Come say hi.
Yeah. This would be just his
Oh, it would
vibe.
It'd
be his vibe.
It would be amazing to have him just come in here.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh my gosh.
I do.
That dude's like the center of the universe right now.
He's earned it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They made him into what he is by all of the prosecution, all of the stuff, and I was a big fan of his in 2016, and this is a very different administration than his first administration. And you said he's like taking names, and he's doing he's coming in and he's cleaning up.
But the people he's nominating for these high positions, these are powerhouse people. They're all a little controversial, but no offense, politicians are. Especially in DC, they're terrible. But you look at how do you get Tulsi Gabbard to flip from blue to red?
Yeah.
And then want to be in your administration? I mean, it was only 4 or 5 years ago she was telling people how bad she hated you.
Yeah.
And now she's, part of the team. And then you got JFK, who's a Democrat, RFK, Democrat legacy, goes independent, and now he's joining Trump still.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dude is just magical. It's crazy what what he gets out of people.
You just compare Mike Pence to JD Vance.
Yeah.
And that tells you the difference between Trump 2016 and Trump 2024.
Right.
Well,
Vance is another one that was a Democrat turned Republican.
Was he a Democrat?
That's what I read or heard somewhere. I know his family is at least the political.
They're hillbillies. I know that.
Well, I know his mom had issues.
I loved his book. I read the book and then I saw the movie too. And
I like him. He's very well spoken. To me he's the scary politician, because if he can do what Trump can do with the how he speaks, holy crap.
Yeah, and see, and Mike Pence was I'll be Trump and you be that guy that has no controversy, that is above reproach, that is a nothing vice president. Vance is not that. Vance is like Trump, but
I would tell you this, and strictly my opinion, I feel like when you have these evangelical, Republicans where they bring up the religion thing too much, people turn out, they turn off, they don't want to hear that.
Right.
Right. And then, you have literally the polar opposite as your president, who is just the bull in the china shop,
Yeah.
And, I mean, as far as like the January 6th deal and, like Pence was going to do what Pence was going to do, and even if he was just a troll move, he doesn't have the gall to pull anything like that off. He was going to rank and file like the rest of them do.
Sad. That was a sad chapter.
Yeah.
A whole sad chapter. But one thing, and I'm sure Trump, if he had known all that was coming, he probably would have done preemptive pardons for all the J6ers. It's what's sad is he had 1,700 people sitting in jail for 4 years
Without conviction.
without conviction.
That's how does that happen?
This is
like, that's kangaroo court, third world country stuff.
Yeah. You read Gulag Archipelago, and it's like back when this was happening, and I said, I love that book, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and I said, do you think this would ever happen in America? It's happening in America,
Right?
And maybe not to the gruesome extent that was happening there, but maybe. I mean,
Right.
I don't know what goes on. We're gonna find out.
What kills me is you had Biden, who is or was the sitting president, not all there. Clearly, day one. I mean, even during the debates, like that wasn't the Joe Biden from the Obama administration, because the Joe Biden from the Obama administration would castrate you on TV and would not think twice about it.
Right.
And this guy's like a goofy old guy who's clearly losing his mind.
It happens.
Right. No.
Yeah.
My grandma went through it. It's
Right.
sad to see.
It is sad to see.
But what's more sad is you're propping this person up. You don't know who's running this country. And then you do these preemptive deals where you just pardon your entire family because they're corrupt. And all because you're afraid that Trump was going to go after you. And to me, it's like, if you're not going to go after Hillary term one, he's probably going to let Joe Biden just ride into the sunset.
Well, and that's what, saying that, like, the collective psyche of America is not the same as it was 4 or 5 years ago. We're not as trusting.
No.
And thank goodness. That's with back to Utah and the politics and the elections and stuff. We heard some of the stuff that, we got to maintain trust in the elections, and Phil Lyman is undermining trust in our elections, and it's so important that people trust their elections. It's like, well, there's a simple way to do that: be trustworthy in the way you administrate.
Yeah, be open and honest.
Be
about
open,
it.
be transparent. I mean, it's not me that's undermining
Right.
trust in the elections. It's not me that's creating any of the controversy that's out there. I just validate those who are observing and are willing to tell the truth about
Right.
it. It's such a refreshing thing to find in what I've been doing, to find so many people who are completely honest, no agenda, willing to speak up.
But people are also tired of all this too.
That's the willing to speak up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so out of control. That's why I always, from my standpoint, looking at Trump, when he was, running, in the 2015 primaries, and the things he was saying on stage, I'm like, they're never going to elect this guy. And then the tidal wave came, and then he was a force to be reckoned with. And now you look at it and it's like, I don't know if politics could ever go back. I'm watching these confirmation hearings, and I don't know if the senators or the reps that are, it would be the senators that are, Democratic, asking these questions. I don't know if they're just, smart and, they're very tactical, or they're just plain like plumb dumb. Because, like the Maisie from Hawaii, that's who represents your state?
Yeah.
Holy. It's so bad, but it's also good though, because I feel like with, this new wave of, whether you want to call them Republicans or MAGA, the MAGA party, they're shining the light on this stuff, and I'm not one for like dictatorship, but what I love the most is, there's a Republican senator that's waving, on a confirmation vote, and they're telling him, do it, or, we will run you out of your seat.
Yeah.
Like when you have that kind of power, it's like, holy crap.
Well, and that's That is power, and Trump's got it
Yeah.
right now.
I
Which
mean,
is,
Lara Trump is running the RNC, right?
yeah.
She controls all the money. I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, and that's and Utah's again. We're sitting at the same
Right.
threshold. You know, is Spencer Cox the face of Utah Republicans?
Right.
Because if it is, you've got a lot of Utah Republicans that are looking for an alternative to that.
So-
Or is Donald Trump? And if and probably if Donald Trump is, you probably also have a bunch of Utahns who are looking for an alternative to that. But it's Becky Edwards, you know,
Right.
more Mitt Romney-esque people that are saying we don't like that Republican Party. We want a Republican Party that basically is a mirror of the Democrat Party.
Right. So back to your BLM deal. So what was the true story on how you got arrested and convicted
So we had a protest in 2011, and
at that site that they
at
raided?
that site. This
Okay.
was not the site that we're talking about. This was in Recapture Canyon. So,
Okay. So different sites.
So
and,
what they raided was people's homes in the pre-dawn hours, breaking into people's homes.
Oh,
You don't do that. You don't do that to people.
they Mar-a-Lago'd them. FBI
well,
raid super early.
Yeah,
CNN has
what's
the
the-
cameras out there.
Who was telling me just yesterday said it's illegal to do a midnight raid on someone who's nonviolent. But
That's common sense, but we don't have that anymore.
right, yeah. So being illegal and saying that it doesn't happen are two very
Right.
different things. It's kind of like Robertson here in Provo that was, shot in his home in the early mornings. Anyway, so this was a violent assault on families. And I know a young girl who was strip searched, 13-year-old girl who was strip searched with her parents on the floor, observing this. You know, jackboot on their head.
That's terrible.
It's terrible. It's horrible stuff. It's things that and it had effects. I still know this girl today, and she's one of my favorite people, but traumatized. And
Oh, I'm sure.
it's not right.
Right.
You know? Sorry, you asked me,
You're good. So, no, you're good.
but that happened. And that prompted the protest in 2011. And so we went down with Dan Love and some of the BLM people that had instigated that. They had no idea. They don't know where any damages are. Which like we're just hired mercenaries. We just came down to do what we were told. So that was very unsatisfying. So then in 2014, May of 2014, I organized another protest. And there was a lot that led up to that too. And I called the BLM and I gave them 5 months notice. This is what we're going to do. I'd love to just get this resolved in advance.
So even though it's government land, you still have to let them know you're doing a protest?
No, but I let them know we were doing a protest.
Okay, so just a courtesy.
Someone early on said, "Well, he got permission." It's like I didn't need permission.
Right.
So that was a real conflict for me. It's like I guess I got permission, but I wasn't calling to get permission. I was calling to as a and that's what I called. I called the state BLM director and I said, I don't like surprises. I don't suspect you like surprises either. We had a town hall meeting last night, and we planned a protest in Recapture Canyon for May 10th. And he said, "Oh well, yeah. We isn't there something else we could do?" And I said, "Yeah, we could just get the road opened as it was supposed to have been done 6.5 years ago. But in absence of that, we got to do something." And this was spurred honestly by the Bureau of Land Management in our coordination meeting, saying we don't have time to do anything on the road in Recapture Canyon. We're too busy responding to lawsuits from SUA, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance. And I said, "Well, would it help if we sued?" Genuine question. "Well, we would rather you didn't." And I said, "Would it help if we protested?"
Would it help if you just went and like removed
Wouldn't that be
the debris so you
yeah.
can use the road? Like
All
we'll
of
do
that
the
we-
job for you.
all of that? Yeah, that idea of just be decent,
Right.
And there's no protest. There's no protest when you treat people decently. But obviously, that didn't happen in 2009 with the raids. It wasn't happening with recapture when a series of abuses and usurpations, evidence of design to
Yeah.
take away people's liberty. This is the declaration. Then it's the duty of the people to stand up and say,
No more.
we're not doing that.
Right.
So that was my right, and it was my duty as a county commissioner. And I took that very seriously. If I was just I'm not a rebel rouser. I'm not. But when you're an elected official, you sure as heck better
Yeah.
stand up there, especially when your town's been raided and
Well, your district's counting on you.
one of your mentors in your life took his life, and and his family's devastated. I mean, destroyed. I mean, just devastated, and it's not fair. So you stand up and you say, let's get some answers. At least let's do that. So I'm sorry, I'm getting way off.
No, you're good.
We had the event. BLM was there. The sheriff's office was there. Everybody was there. We drive down this road. I said, we're just going down to the end of the pipeline road. And it's called the pipeline road, not because there's a pipeline there. I mean, there's a pipeline buried there, but the road was there long before the pipeline.
Right.
So the pipeline's there because the road was there. And they're saying, oh, that was a maintenance road. No, it was a road. Heavy equipment. They went in a 27-inch pipe buried 6 feet deep, 100-foot right away, went in with heavy equipment, plowed this thing, up, take this pipe all the way down the canyon. And that's the road that we drove down. And they're saying, oh, the damage that was done to artifacts on that road, it's bogus. It's a lie.
So that's what they got you on?
Yeah. So they come back, and I had a recording device on my phone. My son had put it on. I didn't really even pay that much attention to it. And then when we got prosecuted, so it was 5 months later, that I got a call from the Salt Lake Tribune saying, how do you feel about being prosecuted federally? And I said, I'll have to get back to you. I didn't find out for 11 days from the time the media knew till I found.
No notice, no serving of papers, nothing.
No nothing.
Wow.
11 days later, I went, and there was something in the mailbox. You're being charged with misdemeanor conspiracy to trespass. And it's like, what is that? Nobody's ever heard of it before or since. And I told my wife, Jody, I said, this is just theater. Don't worry about this.
Right.
This is we're going to be just fine.
And you weren't.
No. I talked to an attorney friend of mine, and he said, take no comfort in the fact that you're innocent. This is federal court, and it makes no difference. And I was like, man, that's a pretty cynical attitude. You might think that, but, I'm an American. I believe in the system.
Right.
Well, by the end of it, you're like, holy moly.
Yeah.
If you think the media is bad, go and listen to a federal U.S. attorney in a courtroom. They lie. They demean. It's the most disgusting thing. And so I watched that happen with the U.S. Attorney's Office. By the end of that, I was convicted. There was 4 people charged. 2 were acquitted and 2 were convicted, which is honestly a miracle in itself, because when they charge you for conspiracy to do anything, all that means is you're going to jail.
Right.
Because they can prove conspiracy to trespass. You didn't actually have to trespass, but you wanted to. I could tell you were thinking about it.
That's like the assault when you look at someone, you flinch and they're like, I got assaulted. We were just talking about that last night. We're like, oh my gosh.
So yeah, we didn't trespass. We didn't. We everything was done on the up and up.
No property damage, none of that.
No property damage. Nothing remotely along those lines. Yet we went through court. We were convicted. We figured after the conviction, the judge came out and talked about his literal love affair with SUA, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, in another case. And I was like, hey, that's our judge, Judge Shelby, Bob Shelby. You can't be the judge in our case when all of the jurors were excluded if they were part of SUA or other organizations.
So he didn't recuse himself.
No.
Wow.
So we made the motion, and my attorney was like, oh, you can't. No, if you do that, you're going to get 5 years instead of 2. He's not, you will never get him to recuse. I said, well, he has to. Yeah. So months and hundreds of thousands of dollars that went into forcing my own attorney with another attorney to file the motion to recuse. And I'll just tell you this because it's kind of a fun story. So I was down in Florida visiting my son in medical school, and
Gator?
no, it was a UN UFC. Thanks.
Oh, Central Florida. Okay.
Yeah, Orlando.
I'm a Gator fan. He's a Cane fan. So
okay.
We get along great when those two play.
So
anyway,
you can't fire your attorney in federal court. It takes a lot to change attorneys. So he calls me and he said, my other attorney had sent him the document. He said, okay, I will file this and I will resign as your attorney. And I said, well, that's a win-win. File it. He said, all right, you're going to be sorry. And we filed it on a Thursday. Monday morning, Judge Shelby recuses, and that attorney's taking victory laps. Look what I did, and I didn't use him for anything after that.
Sounds like he just ripped you off.
It's very expensive, and it's
So how long?
it's part of being charged. That's the beautiful part about being charged federally is the process, is the punishment.
So did you end up doing actual jail time for this?
Yeah. So that was the first judge to recuse. 3 more judges recused. The chief judge finally had to take the case. And when it came time for sentencing, he came in. This is months after the whole thing started, and he said,
Not really knowing anything and just reading notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish he had read his notes sooner, because then he would have just said, this is a new trial, or this is a bogus charge, something. But he said, I haven't got much sleep the last couple of weeks, Mr. Lyman. I don't imagine you have either. And it's the first time I've been addressed by a judge. You're not even supposed to, raise your head. And I said, no, Your Honor, I haven't. And he said, I've been up reading your case. And this was, and then they went on to say, this was a ridiculous case, and reprimanded the prosecutors and all this. And my first, I didn't say it, but I want to say, why didn't you read it 6 months ago when you denied our motion for a new trial?
Right.
That would have been helpful. Or when you came up with a bogus restitution of $97,000. Well, that would have been helpful.
Maybe just do your job six
Just
months
do your
ago.
dang job. Anyway, I laugh about it, but it was not trivial. I mean, I'm expecting when I go to sentencing that I'll be going for minimum of 10 months, probably 2 years. So you take whatever things you can with your business. You tell your wife you're on your own.
Sorry.
Yeah. Talk to so and so if you can't make the mortgage payment. I mean, it's very, very real. It's very painful.
Well, not only that though, but then the people that weren't there start to judge you.
Oh man.
You know what I mean?
That is also part of the fun of being charged, is
which probably hurt you in your gubernatorial race, right?
No.
Was it the opposite?
Who was it that one of the reporters that I said, you made me who I am today. It's like Brian Malahy, he came out when I first got in the legislature, which I'll get to that too, but his headline was Lawbreaker turned Lawmaker. And I called him up and I said, that's mine. I'm using that. That is my moniker. So you can, and it really was one of those things. Is like, I was embarrassed. There was a point I was sitting in a committee meeting at the legislature, and I'm thinking, I don't have a political path. I'm damaged goods. I've been to jail. I've been prosecuted. I probably shouldn't even be in politics. And I was really having those feelings. And I was sitting there, I was thinking, I thought, you know what? I've got a mugshot. It's before they were cool.
Own it.
Yeah. And I thought, so I right there in the committee meeting when I'm supposed to be listening to the bill, and I was listening, but I jumped on Upwork online thing and said, hey, can anybody make a coffee mug with a mugshot on it? Comes back, oh yeah. So I ordered some mugs for myself, and I ordered some mugs for Monty Wells, my dear friend who was prosecuted with me and went to jail. So he had a mugshot too. I just called and said, hey, do you have a mugshot? Can you send it to me? And a few days later, this was the interim meeting. So I think I ordered those in November. So they showed up just before Christmas. I went over and gave him his mugs thinking, he may just punch me in the face when he sees me. He loved him. And he's like, I want to order, ordered 40 more. He's given them to all of his friends. And so I was like, well, and they were very popular. So actually when I ran for governor, when we did speaking engagements with, people's houses or whatever, cottage meetings, we give them a mug, and they loved it. And
that should be your running slogan though.
It's one of those things that if nothing else, it tells people I'm not all talk. I'll jeopardize myself.
Right.
In fact, that really was the feeling as a county commissioner. It's like, okay, I just watched you destroy the lives of 26 families. Try that with a county commissioner. In my mind, it's like, they have power. They have authority.
Yeah.
They got the backing of the governor.
You don't know who you're messing with.
You don't know who you're messing with. And you find out, oh yeah, commissioners, they'll run right over the top of you. And then you're on the phone with your senators and your congressmen and your governor saying,
Help me.
This is not my road. You realize this. I'm not standing up for anything that belongs to me, I'm standing up for what belongs to the state of Utah.
Right.
Would you stand up for the state of Utah? Would you just do that? Just come in and amicus brief something? Nothing. No.
Like everyone turned their back.
Sadly, yeah.
Wow.
And so I go up. Spencer Cox is the lieutenant governor. He has a meeting, and I'm up there to say, this is a state road. It's a county. These roads, these RS-2477 roads, are owned by the state and the county jointly. So this is your fight as much as it's mine. All it would take is for the state of Utah to say, hey, BLM, what are you doing? That's our road.
Right.
Because it was County Road D5314. This is not like, I'm not creating.
You're not starting fires.
I'm not a criminal, and I'm not doing any of that. And instead, Spencer Cox in that meeting says, well, we can't involve ourselves in a thing that's got a judicial question, but I'm giving $1,000 to Phil Lyman. And the governor's committed to give $10,000 to Phil Lyman. And then some of the commissioners, I'm giving money to Phil Lyman too. And so they're throwing cash on this table.
Now he's like, hey, he ran against me. I gave you $1,000. You're supposed to go away.
Yeah. Well, he didn't give me $1,000. He just promised to give me $1,000.
So he lied. That's odd.
Yeah. Surprise.
So
all of that was just theater. It was just like,
right.
And the media is like eating it up. Like, oh, did you see Lyman up there like rifting off the. And it's like, I didn't go up there for the money. And
right.
in hindsight, I wish I would have said, keep your money. This is your road. If you're not going to stand up for it, you can just live with that. But the idea that they were throwing money on the table, I was paying for my attorney. I was paying for Monty's attorney, whatever I could put together.
Yeah, but if you're $200,000 in the hole on attorney fees, like
you get $5,000.
Anyone would take that money, though.
Yeah,
like,
and it's not a luxury that you have. You can't say, in my principles, if it was we're giving money to Phil Lyman, it'd be like, no, thank you, please. And I did. I came across a stack of checks that were in my drawer just a while back, and I thought, wow, that's a lot of money that I didn't cash those checks because I didn't feel like those people deserved to.
Right.
I knew them. They're my friends. That's the other thing. Everything I've done I've been supported by people who know me and they're my friends. But that was a wild experience, and I went to jail. A very, very real experience in jail.
Yeah, I'm sure. It just seems like the theme even back then is severe government overreach. And like it's still the name of the game now. You look at what they did to the FBI and the CIA, and it's like nothing's changed.
You find truly sadistic people in some of these agencies, and you say, well, why would you do that? And the answer is, I just hate people, and especially Republicans. I mean, my U.S. attorney, Allison Moon, was posting, I love Bears Ears, protect Bears Ears. And Mike Lee is such a jerk because he won't pay for my student loan. And it's like, you're a U.S. attorney. You're in charge of my case. You're the one that's contacting me and asking for my tax returns and all these things. And it's like, you are antagonistic. You dislike me immensely. You've never met me. You don't know me, but you dislike me intensely. And and that's why at the low point, I scraped together $96,000, wrote a check, paid him off, gave him my tax returns, complied with everything that I could. I told Jody, I said, they're going to crack me open like a clam. This is never, ever, ever going to end.
No, they're coming after you.
And it was at that point that I wrote I downloaded some stuff, Googled it, found an application for a pardon. Donald Trump was out of office. It wasn't out of office. He had lost the election.
Oh, so you're right in the
quote unquote
the transition. Right.
So he was still the president. And when I was filling out the application, it said you need an affidavit from 3 people, at least 3. So I texted Senator Lee.
Just get you some signatures.
Yeah. Write them up. Yeah. So see?
I get it.
You're good at this.
I get it.
So I texted Mike Lee. It was midnight where I was at in Blanding, and I thought, maybe he'll respond. Maybe I'll hear back from him. And I mean, immediately, yes, 100%. I mean, text after text. Absolutely. You're on the side of the Angels. This should never have happened. I am going to do this. And he did. He worked his tail off.
So you're a Mike Lee fan.
I am a Mike Lee fan for all that he did and all that he does for public land. And
I don't know a lot about him.
I wish he was more of a Phil Lyman fan. I guess I'll put it that way. I don't know why he jumped on the Cox thing. I don't know why. I don't know why Trump jumped on it. So that's a current open.
We got to change that.
It's okay. And I if I had a baseball team, I would want it filled up with senators like Mike Lee. That guy has the highest batting average in the whole Washington D.C. He's really fantastic. But
my only thing with Mike Lee is he came out, he was so strong. It's almost like they get their they win their election and they want to do all this good stuff. And he's in those those meetings and he's drilling people and you're like, holy, this guy's good.
He's good.
He's drilling, big tech, and the next thing you know, he's all about big tech. And it's like, oh, they got to you.